Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be covering how to DIY your low maintenance dream landscape. And of course, we don't want to be drowning in debt and dreading the maintenance of it. So, before we get started, I would like to acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional owners and custodians of Naarm, Melbourne, the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, in which we are actually filming today. So, we recognize their deep connection to this land, their continuing culture, and the ongoing role that they play as custodians. So, if you're here, you're likely a busy budding DIYer who's always dreamed of a gorgeous, productive, and inviting landscape, but you don't have the hours on end for maintenance. Now, you're in the right place if you stare out into your garden and you have no idea where to start. You're not happy with what you have, but it all feels overwhelming and everything that you've tried doesn't work. You're in the right place if you scroll through Pinterest and you see lots of ideas, but you don't know how to work them into your space or how you could possibly afford them. You're in love with the feed, but not your own yard. And you're in the right place if you pretty much pretend like your outdoor space doesn't exist, it's unsightly, it's high maintenance, doesn't make you feel good. You're in the right place if you would like to grow some food, even if it's just a little. It doesn't have to be a market garden, but you're outside your mind, busy, and you have no skill in doing so. You know that food in your life will be an asset, but you've had little or no success in the past. You're also in the right place if you're currently building your new home and you don't want your garden to forever be the builder's rubbish dumping ground. You've been so focused on that building process and now you don't know what the hell you're going to do with your garden. So let's get started with a hypothetical scenario. Imagine you've been told that you've got 3 months to create the perfect landscape for you and your family. How would you approach it? So we've got option A, overwhelmed Olivia and Oliver. So Olivia and Oliver get overwhelmed with the current landscape. They want something that looks gorgeous and brings joy, but they have literally no idea where to start. It's possible that they ask Facebook gardening groups for advice and get 100 million different answers that leave you even more lost when they started, or never commit to creating a full landscape design because it seems scary and committing to one idea might not be the right one. You probably start small sections of the space to gain some momentum, hoping that it will all come together, but it never really does. Or option B, we've got Get Things Done Properly, Gloria and Gary. So Gloria and Gary creates the landscape of their dreams using proven steps that take the area that they've got, the budget into account, and their dreams and desires. They follow a professional, even though they're DIYing. They get things done once and for all with an achievable project plan. They plan and plant low maintenance gardens tailored to their schedule that pretty much look after itself. They fast track their success without all of that questionable Facebook and random family member advice. And they don't waste a second on trial and error. So I want you to have a think for a minute. Like, who do you resonate with most? Are you overwhelmed, Olivia and Oliver? Or are you Get Things Done Properly, Gloria and Gary? So we're Maurizio and Alex. So obviously I'm Alex, and you can call us Maori and Alex to shorten the process. Sometimes it can be a bit tricky to say Maurizio. So what we do is we empower homeowners like you to create the landscape of your dreams that's highly functional, gorgeous, whilst also being low maintenance. So in other words, I guess you could say we help overwhelmed Olivias and Olivers become Get Things Done Glorias and Garys. And we make sure that Gloria and Gary has the right tools to make sure that the landscape of their dreams actually comes true. So I want to give you a little bit of background on our recent history. In 2019, we actually found ourselves deep in the Tarkine forest. We were taking a little break from a wildly busy and tiring year in a pivotal changing point in our lives. We were actually looking and, of course, expecting to see this, a gorgeous ancient forest. And what we came across, and I don't want to babble for too long, but we actually came across all of these logging trucks and diminished forests. Like things were just disappearing quicker than I could ever imagine. Um, and this landscape was literally being chopped down to send off wood chips for paper to China. And then what was happening is different trees were all being planted of the same kind. So the habitat and ecosystem was being ruined for furniture, timber, and yeah, just materials in general. And this was shocking. It's shocking to see through pictures, but to actually be there was just crazy because, on one hand, you've got this gorgeous ecosystem that it just can't be replicated. Like, you can't create something like that. It's so naturally gorgeous. And on the other side, you've got half of it gone. And it was really sad. So, this made us reflect a lot. And the summary of our discovery was that us as humans were poorly using our resources and we needed more thoughtful allocation and awareness. So, this sat with us and we were feeling like we needed change, and we had a concept that was already bubbling, but we just didn't know how to express it yet. Fast forwarding on our flight back to Melbourne, the concept of Tarkina actually began. We started to have some members of the community that were struggling with their natural spaces. They wanted more connection in their natural spaces. And Maurizio and I, as he's an engineer and I'm a permaculturalist, we always pondered this and wondered how we could create more meaningful urban environments. So people were really, really screaming for their spaces to be gorgeous, but we were in the suburbs and we knew that we weren't going to be fully restoring these ecosystems to natural bushlands. You know, we're in 50 square meter spaces and people were screaming for something that's sustainable, but it's functional, it's sexy, and it's appealing, and it doesn't interfere with our life. So we really started to wonder, how can people have a Pinterest worthy, low maintenance, practical landscape without feeling overwhelmed, selling their organs, and having to dedicate every weekend to maintaining it? So, how can you create an abundant and Pinterest worthy landscape in a way that doesn't add pressure to your life, doesn't take you hours to maintain, anyone in the household can maintain it, doesn't cost every penny in your pocket, it improves the quality of you and your family's lives, and it looks absolutely stunning and Pinterest worthy? So I don't want to dwell on the problem, but one of the things we discovered was that the current landscape design generally doesn't consider the actual laws of nature. So the reality is that we're living in a natural world, and when you try to follow trends that don't take into account the actual way that nature works, then the gardens at some point are going to start to work against you, and you're going to need to work really hard to keep them in the way that you originally made them. The other thing that we noticed was that designs weren't designed based on the occupants' needs. These spaces literally had no logical thought process and were just thrown together, making the new occupant's life a living hell. Or they were purely for aesthetics, and once nature took its course, they were totally out of the question. So Maurizio and I started experimenting with mixing permaculture design and traditional landscape design. So the strategies that landscapers and DIYers are usually too focused on is either like budget or current trends, and not enough on creating a holistic landscape that ticks all of the boxes to suit their life. So in 2019, we created a formula based on these very questions. And in 2020, we actually started physically applying these to people's gardens. And the coolest part is that when the people started living in their landscape, they became happier, they were more connected to nature. And the better news is those systems are continuing to thrive and serve their exact purpose today. And might I add, they've added no maintenance to the life of those people. So from there, we started to develop and refine our own unique system for designing suburban landscapes for homeowners. And this is exactly the framework we're going to share with you today, alongside useful tips and tricks to get your project started along the way. So these days, where are we at? We've helped over 50 homeowners create their very own low maintenance productive dream landscape. We help other new landscapers on how to follow this framework and insert it into their business. We've got requests waiting in 3 countries, which is crazy, to apply this very framework. We've been featured in a number of sustainability driven articles. Our community now extends to over 100 people internationally. So, by the end of this training, you are going to walk away with what components make a high maintenance garden so that you don't end up with a high maintenance garden. You're going to understand how to understand cost value in your space so that you don't spend money on things you don't value. You're also going to learn some low maintenance food production methods so that you have the confidence to grow food as you please. And we really encourage you, if you do have any questions about the presentation, you can either directly message us at Tarkaina on Instagram or email us at info@tarkaina.com.au. So let's jump straight into the actual training. So, what components make a low maintenance garden? It's really important that we start with, what does low maintenance mean? So it's kind of a word that's thrown around, I think, to kind of sell, but we really need to define what that means in a real sense. So what we would consider low maintenance gardening to be is a garden that will survive by itself if neglected for a period of time and also look fabulous in that time. And it can also be maintained in less than 30 minutes a week to keep everything to a standard of perfection. So, the number one thing for a low maintenance garden that we would say is choosing suitable surfaces for the suitable application. So, most of the time when you see a garden start to get out of hand, a lot of the time it will be involving those surfaces, whether it's plant matter coming into the surfaces, not how people desired, or it could be like concrete cracking or dampness, etc. So it's really important that when you're choosing your surface, that you take into account how much tread it's going to get. So there we're talking about how many times we're going to walk over it, like how often. Is it something that you go on once a week, every day? You only walk on it once every 4 months? That will totally change the surface that you go for, even where it's located. So the next thing that we think about is who and what needs to pass through it. So a path that goes from your front gate to your front door will generally be very different to the side path that barely gets used. So one example is most people would want clean shoes as they go from the street to the front door of the house. So usually you'd be choosing like a stepping stone or a straight concrete paved area, or not like permeable pavers or something like that. Whereas your side path might be more ground cover or Tuscan topping, or like a cheaper solution. Another thing to consider is what was previously under it. So it's really important, and we will dig deeper into this, but what was underneath that surface before? It's really important to know the characteristics of the land so you don't get any surprises later. And the other thing is drainage. Drainage can sometimes be ignored, but knowing where the water flows in your property is crucial to a successful low maintenance design. So I just want to give you a really good example of a client that they had this Tuscan topping solution. Pretty much it was a townhouse that was built, and the builders just did the landscape. So they put Tuscan topping everywhere with not much thought. I think that they just chucked it on top of soil. It wasn't even pressed properly. So this pathway was a cheap solution. It was at the side of the house. And Elizabeth, she hated it. So based on the assessment that we did, we understood that a lot of moisture was going here. So obviously things wanted to naturally grow. There wasn't a lot of sunlight, so only particular things would grow. And it needed to be used often, but there was no wheels that needed to go over it, no wheelie bins, no wheelbarrows. So we decided to create bluestone pavers with a native viola surrounding. And I'm not even joking. This one has only been lightly weeded once in 3 years. Like, it is the lowest maintenance solution and it looks gorgeous. So it's really important putting that thought in behind that will change the way that you experience your space. So another thing is choosing the right application for your needs. So what climate are you in? We see so often that people, because they want a particular style garden, will try and take things from another climate and squish them into their garden and then expect to have a low maintenance set and forget garden. But we know that the more local we choose, the less maintenance it's going to be. So playing with this and choosing the right plants and design for your garden can really change the amount of time you have to put in. So, also, how often can you really spend maintaining the garden? So, it's something to think about before. So, you might decide that you want a high maintenance element, but you need to know how long that's going to take you to maintain and schedule it in. Otherwise, it's not going to be manageable. Another thing that will really change is the appropriate layering. And appropriate layering in gardens, it is really underrated, I think, and I always like to go for a 3-layered system, like really simple for most people. Um, if you've got a row of hedges, for example, there's no way that you're not going to get weeds coming through that. Like, if you have a ground cover, a medium shrub, and a tree, you're going to get far less weeds than if you have just one kind of plant. It's about creating ecosystems and simplifying that. And a replenishing design. So, a garden that actually recycles its nutrients is a great garden. It's a really, really great garden because it will require less input. So, I want you to have a think for a second. Which one do you think is a lower maintenance solution? Is it the one on the left or the one on the right? So we've got on the left, we've got grass, we've got some palms, we've got some box hedges with mulch, everything's very square. And then on the right, we've got a sort of layered garden, we've got grasses coming out, etc. So it is by far the one on the right, the one with all the grasses. So there's no space for weeds to come through. It doesn't need any lawn mowing. It doesn't need any hedge shaping. Probably once every 6 months, this one needs a trim. And that's good design. And that's smart design, especially for a verge garden. Another one I want you to think of, and this is a really classic landscaping move. So we've got on the left here, we've got white rocks, probably plastic, and some cypress. And then on the right, we've got this really like dreamy garden with the grasses and the flowers, etc. I want you to have a think. Which one do you think by instinct is lower maintenance? So the one on the right, again, it is lower maintenance. The one on the left is the white rocks are not going to stay clean. The trees are going to drop a little bit of matter. The birds and the animals are going to make the rocks dirtier and dirtier. The dirt is going to get mixed with the rocks at some point. Weeds come from birds that drop seeds. So even putting the plastic doesn't stop weeds growing. And that's going to become a mess. And we see that all the time. This trend of white rocks, plastic, and trees is not low maintenance. The one on the right, again, probably needs maintaining once every 6 months max. It is low maintenance when you design a well-layered garden. And now another fun one, maybe one of my favorites. So which one of these do you think is low maintenance? So we've got someone here, obviously they're picking out the weeds of their lawn. They've got the lawnmower, they always have to mow the lawn. Or on the right, we've got a Japanese style of grass called zoysia grass, and it actually doesn't need any mowing. So I've got an example, and this is one of my favorite low maintenance solutions that we've got is using no-mow grasses to create play spaces and spaces to lie and even a visual effect of a green space. Makes so much more sense than a lawn that you have to mow. Just have a think about it. Like, there are so many different options for so many different kind of sunlight and spaces and climate. It makes so much sense to be choosing these low maintenance solutions. So this is a garden that we've become very famous for, and it's actually a townhouse in Broadmeadows. And this garden barely gets maintained. the occupant of this house is actually 80 years old. She has a like heavy social calendar. She just comes out and she trims her kale, and we go there like once a year, and we give everything a trim. But it's all a natural system that's flowing. She puts her compost in. It's easy. It's well designed because it's been thought out and layered. So now we're going to jump into understanding cost value in your landscape. So what happens when we go from 100,000 to a 10,000 landscape? Like, what is the big differences? What is that? And it's time to address the elephant in the room. There's a big question that always gets asked, and that is, how much does a landscape cost? Which is kind of a difficult question to answer, but we've done our best to give you some numbers based off all the averages we've got across Australia. So the average suburban landscape design costs between $3,000 and $5,000. And the average 50 square meter property can cost between $25,000 and $50,000. So a lot of people see this and they go, it's more than I thought. And straight away they go, all right, we'll cut the design process. And I really want to stop you there, because that's one of the biggest mistakes that people do, which actually makes the project cost more in the end. So why is it so fundamental for the design process to happen? Why are we so obsessed with design? You wouldn't design your house without a plan. So why do you expect your garden will be fine without one? So making a plan is the single most important thing in creating a space that you love. When everything is planned out, you remove that randomness of the project, and you can literally curate your dream project instead of hoping for the best. Like, it is the guaranteed solution for that. Doing a design allows you to design within the parameters of your budget and decide what's worth it or not. So you can actually change things and understand the price of things before you start to get involved with the project. Number 3, mistakes on paper, not on the ground. So instead of making $1,000 mistakes, which so many people do, even by just planting plants randomly, you can actually make those mistakes on paper, and you can refine, and you can ask questions, and you can make sure that within that time frame, you know exactly that you've put the right things down. So then if that's 3,000 to 5,000 on design makes sense, like we understand where that price is coming from, where do the implementation costs come from? So the main ones are labor, access, materials, transport, tools and machinery, skills, unfactored discoveries. There's a whole lot involved there. Just to give you like the start of a project, if you've got a project where you need to remove matter prior to starting the project, which is 80% of the jobs that we do, for example, you already have a skip bin that can cost anywhere between $500 and $2,000. And that depends on how many cubic meters of material that you're moving. You've got the labor involved with that. So you've got all the stuff that needs to be loaded up. Someone needs to take that away, transport, etc., and pay to dispose of that. You've also got to think about things like access. So depending on your backyard, you might have a garage that pops up and you can access it straight away. But a lot of people have a narrow little side walkway. It might be 50 centimeters depending on that. And that adds a whole lot of labor to that. So there's so many things that can change the price of a landscape. And there's so many things involved that most people don't think about. So all of these things can be decided and factored in the design process. So you can actually decide on your budget and site and start to understand what costs what and decide what's worth it for you. You can make those decisions in the design process instead of like going gung-ho at it. So the next point, how can we grow food without hours on end of maintenance? It's hard growing food, right? That's the narrative that we've got. It's really hard to grow food. So I wanted to make this section of the presentation really, really simple because it's something that I'm so passionate about with all my heart. And I think that it's been overcomplicated and stopped many people from having successful food gardens. So My three number ones are: put your food as close to the house as the sun will allow for. So obviously you need sun to grow food, but needs to be within sight. Create a system of checking your calendar, just like we write birthdays in calendars and appointments. You need to create a system. It doesn't have to be hours on end, but you need to have a system. And irrigate. Don't leave the watering to chance. Make sure that you're set up for success. You have all the tools you need. So, why in the design process must we put our food in an area that we're passing by, close to the house? It's most people's sort of logic that they'll put it away. It's not something they want to see. They want the pretty garden close to the house and the food far away. So, the thing is that this is a psychological thing. Trust me, we've done lots of experiments with this. And only when people have the food in their walking path does it become an easy solution. Like, the closer you have it to the house, the better. So I'm really busy. And even though I do this like 7 days a week and I'm really passionate about the garden, only when I have my veggie gardens close to the house are they at their full success. Use a system. So we don't need to have complicated systems for growing food, but just pop in like 20 minutes in your calendar once a week, 1 hour a month, whatever it is that suits you. You can design your routine around this however you like, but you need to just have an allocated time so that you don't find yourself in 4 months with a dead veggie garden. You could even do 10 minutes a week in the garden. There's not a lot of work required once it's set up. We were living in Williamstown, and we had out the front, we had probably 1 meter by 3 meters on each side of the driveway of just pure production veggies. And we were so busy that I literally spent like probably 45 minutes, excuse me, 45 minutes a month. And we were just eating zucchinis, tomatoes, lettuce, everything. We just had a system going. We were busy, we're on the go, but we were passing by it, and we had an allocated time to check on that. And irrigation. So a lot of people try without irrigation, but in our experience, when you're setting up your garden, you want to commit on it and you want to set up that irrigation. Don't leave watering to chance, especially going into drier periods into the summer. You don't want to leave watering to chance. So here's some lovely words from our beautiful people that we've worked with. We're so grateful for the people that we've been able to create gardens for. It's amazing how it's actually changed the lifestyle of so many people. So the thing is, we've unlocked the secret to a dream sustainable landscape. And the even cooler part about it is that we've discovered a process that's replicable for homeowners to take charge themselves. So here's what we've discovered. There is a formula that must be followed to get all of the components right. So today I'm actually going to share with you the exact step-by-step framework for creating a low maintenance and dreamy landscape, because thousands of people are stressed about their landscape when it should be their oasis, their escape, a place for them to feel safe and great. And I really don't want you to be one of those people. So the landscape blueprint. So there's so many different industry knowledges that we brought into this methodology. So we've decided to systematize it into a process that's simple and it works. So ecologically, so we take the ecological factors of the site in a systematic way and we compile them. So we have the data and we know what the characteristics of this site are. Then we're looking at the dreams and desires. So what are your dreams and desires of the space? Maybe you do like the light tones and the white walls, but you want to have a veggie garden, and you can have anything you want, but you have to articulate it. You have to dream it up and then put it into a process. Then we take all of those things that we understand now, the ecological factors, dreams and desires, and put it in a design formula. So actually going through the design process and making a design that makes sense. And then, of course, making sure it gets done. A design that never gets done doesn't mean anything. So making sure that you're following a project management plan with checklists and just getting things done easily should be enjoyable. A system, tick those things off. So this is literally the key, to have the right order and combination. So not starting at dreams and desires and then seeing what the ecology can offer. Going through this process is what actually makes those systems work. So the result that you get from that is a manageable landscape that comprises of your biggest dreams and desires without compromising on time, beauty, or quality. So you're here, and we really want to get you over here so that you can enjoy your dream landscape. So this is literally the best way to achieve a gorgeous, functional, and Pinterest-worthy garden whilst avoiding the 3 biggest mistakes that overwhelmed homeowners make when choosing to do their landscape. So now what we're going to do is we're going to dive into what are the 3 most common mistakes people make when DIYing their garden. We really don't want you to be one of those people, so pay attention. So common mistake 1 is focusing only on how the space looks. And I think as human nature, it's totally normal and we all want to do this. So the solution to this is actually following the opportunities and obstacles from our ecological site assessment, designing around that with the style that you want. And that can actually come out with some really cool things. So remember, we're not actually compromising the look here. You can have it all. But if you start to build your landscape around looks and desires with literally no idea about the opportunity and natural constraints of your site, you will land yourself in probably a problematic design that doesn't function, or a design that you don't love, or you won't be able to go ahead. Another common mistake that we see is people that are worrying solely about the price, and obviously budget is a big factor. We don't underestimate that. But sacrificing quality only to find you need to do it again in 2 years is not the way to go, because that is a costly exercise and it's not nice. It's not a nice experience for anyone. So the solution here is understanding where costs really lie, doing a formal audit process to get the highest value and quality for your solution. So that comes back to this design process. And I will add, don't think that DIY saves you money if you don't know what you're doing. It actually may end up costing you a hell of a lot more if you go in blindsided. And that's exactly why we're trying to show you right now what the formula can be for you to create something that's functional, sexy, and productive. So common mistake 3 is also another human nature one, I guess, and we all want to get things done. Maybe you've got a new house and you say, all right, I just want to start one section, get in, there's no plan, and you just hope that everything will develop over time. So the solution for this is using a design formula to tick all your boxes. It might take you a little bit longer, but the mistakes that you'll save and the money that you'll save is so worth it. And I do really want to add here, just because you complete your design doesn't mean that it won't evolve and you can't change things over time. It just means that you've got a functioning design and you can improve it over time. So, are you ready to dive deeper with me? Let's unpack these 3 common mistakes in detail. So, if we're focusing only on how the space looks, the reality is you're not designing a living room. You're designing in nature, and these components are totally out of your control. If you don't understand the basic laws of how nature will respond in your space, you'll never have a low maintenance, high functioning, and beautiful landscape. So here's what it usually looks like on a timeline. So if you focus just on looks, you can take a picture and it'll look nice. Might look nice for 3 to 6 months, but it starts to need increasingly more work and you don't grow it how you meant it. So generally what happens is people start to avoid the space and come back to square one with less budget than before, and something that they completely hate and maybe have a negative association with now because it didn't work the first time. So the solution is making sure that we start with assessing the ecological factors. You really must take into consideration the climate, the sun paths, the soil types, the way that wildlife moves in your space, even possums. It's a big problem for most people, but could have been planned for in the design process. Drainage issues, naturally occurring plants, etc. So this is not something only for edible gardens. So, ecological opportunity. So, sometimes we might see our ecological space as a constraint, but the truth is, most of the time, it's actually an opportunity waiting to happen. So, we need to look at this objectively and understand that every condition is an opportunity. Every condition. I'm going to give you an example. So, if you've got water pooling in your space, which will obviously be visible at different times of the year, um, this can be an opportunity, but probably you're looking at it and thinking it's a drainage problem. If you decide to ignore this information, you might decide to put some paving over the top, you'll just get it paved, cheapest paver, look great for a bit, sand and crushed rock. After a while, it's going to start to warp and sink. However, if you understood this challenge and you turned it into an opportunity, you could have a literally gorgeous feature in your space that people would die for, to have a dry creek bed in the space. So, depending on what your preference is, you can have different solutions. But the main thing is that we're taking something that was a problem and turning it into a feature, which is what most people dream for. So maybe you're thinking, I don't have time to think about all these things. So it might be a little bit more time up front, but following this method is actually going to save you many compounding hours on end in the future as you progress. So let's jump back into common mistake number 2. If you're worrying mostly about the price, sacrificing quality only to find you need to do it again in 1 to 2 years. So this is a major reason most people call us. Here's what it looks like. So you might save a couple of $1,000s initially on design, labor, and materials, and you're feeling good about that. We're happy. There's a change in the backyard. Everyone's happy. Might not be a masterpiece, but it's done. Then you'll notice things start to deteriorate really quickly, if you're lucky enough that it's just deterioration. So, truth bomb, spending what the space is worth from the very start will be cheaper than having to redo it in 1 to 2 years. Believe me, we've had to do some pretty shonky landscapes, and they weren't just DIY jobs. It's just about the budget put in towards it. So the solution is to this one, using the design process integrated with your dreams and desires analysis to methodically design to your budget, but ensuring that you don't cut that quality and don't sacrifice the things that you love. So you want to turn your challenges into opportunities. So we don't have the extra cash to spend on fancy materials. You don't need everything fancy. You just need to understand what it's worth for you and what the difference between high quality and not is. You need to understand what you're doing when you choose different materials, which ones are worth it to get cheaper, and what can't be negotiated on. So, just to give you some examples of way to save, we're currently working on a property in Ingliston with a limited budget. It's not a limited budget; it's a huge site, and the budget needs to save where it can. So, strategically, instead of purchasing fully grown plants, we've gone to the local Indigenous nursery group to purchase high quality Indigenous seedlings that cost about $1.50 each, as opposed to the classic price of a plant, which is $14.95. We've selected a few feature pieces to bring the garden up to like a really high standard initially, and then they all grow into each other. So we've saved so much money doing that for not a lot of cost, because visually we've still made the effort to get some feature trees in there. Another example of ways to save. So one of our clients that's gone through the program herself has got the full design and has decided to build a bungalow. So the budget for the landscape's gone down. And now that she's got the design, instead of buying all new materials, she's putting together chic secondhand materials on Facebook Marketplace, hard rubbish, tip shop, etc. She's finding really nice pieces because she's got the design. She knows what she needs. So she's actually building out her landscape over time. So, common mistake number 3, starting one section to make you feel like you're making progress without a plan. Here's what it always looks like, I'll say, not like usually looks like. So, usually everyone's, we're finally starting our landscape, people get excited, and I know that this is a natural thing because I'm like that too. Things start to grow and develop, but they weren't what you dreamed them to be. Back to square one, figuring out and trying to create a cohesive plan. The plan always wins. The truth is, you really do need a cohesive plan before starting any kind of landscape if you want to see the finished product that you love before you're too old to even walk down the garden path. But I've already started, so that's okay. It's not the end of the world. And you might not be on the right track now, but if you do restart from the design process properly, you can ensure that you're not wasting any more time on this. So by now, I'm guessing you're probably a little bit frazzled and wondering, like, all right, how am I going to work this in? I just want to recap with you. You're probably stuck here. Olivia, Oliver, a little bit lost in the process, focusing on how that space looks, worrying about the price, and maybe trying one section at a time in summary. Or maybe you are Gloria and Gary and you're missing the tools that you need. So, what you've learned is that the landscape blueprint is the best way to avoid the 3 biggest mistakes that DIYers make when designing and implementing a dream landscape. Common mistake 1, focusing only on how the space looks, turns into the solution of following the ecological factors and design formula. Common mistake 2, worrying solely about the price and sacrificing quality only to find you need to do it again in 2 years. Understanding where our costs lie and doing a formal audit process to get the highest value and quality from your situation. Common mistake 3, starting one section just to feel like you're making progress without a plan. Solution to that, using a design formula ticks all of your boxes. So, where do we want to go? We want to go from A to B. We want to get there. We want to enjoy our space. You really want to be nourishing in your space rather than stressing about it. So, probably you've still got questions. So, commonly I get asked, like, how do I collate my ideas and agree with my family on one thing? How am I going to assess the landscape and know what my site needs? How do I know which plants to use? I have no artistic skill. How do I draw the design? How do I figure out which materials to use? I'm a busy mom with a full-time job. How do I make this happen? How do I finish this project to create a dream oasis for me and my family? Well, I'm really glad that you asked. So, I want to introduce to you the landscape blueprint. And what this does is it empowers you to create the perfect landscape for you and your family. The landscape blueprint is a step-by-step program to help you create the oasis and landscape of your dreams to complete and enjoy it once and for all. Done. If you want to improve it, you can keep doing that, but it's finished. You can tick it off your list without all of the overwhelm and spending years experimenting with different solutions. And of course, we don't want to be wasting thousands of dollars on this. So, this program allows you to be extraordinary at creating a functional design tailored to you and your family, whilst also completely understanding and applying the laws of ecology and making a long lasting piece of functional beauty. So, what does the landscape blueprint include? So, the core of this is a year or two in the making of a curriculum and framework. So, this includes 10 modules. Module 1 is got a downloadable manual. So, you've got a digital manual for people that love to keep it all digital. You've got a hard copy that you can print out with a gorgeous cover that makes it lovely to go out into the garden and fill out all of the information and keep track of your project. Module 2, you're going to learn how to understand those ecological principles, which are the base of your entire project and success for the ongoing future. In Module 3, you're going to learn to really vision and goal set like a pro and understand how to put those thoughts on paper and put everything together. In Module 4, you're going to learn to site assessment properly without skipping the important details. Module 5, you're going to understand and learn how to interpret that data to actually use it in a functional way. In Module 6, you're going to learn how to draft and dream your space and have so much fun creating different scenarios and figuring out which one works for you and which one really works in the space. Module 7, you're going to check the laws and regulations because there's nothing worse than creating something that doesn't comply. Module 8, we're going to go through all of the hardscape features and you're going to learn which pathways to choose, which garden bed options you have, all of the different materials, drainage, etc. In Module 9, you're going to go through softscapes, so we're talking plants, mulches, and soils. And in Module 10, you're going to learn and create your final design, just like a pro. It's going to be gorgeous. I've seen some of the ones coming out of it, and we're impressed. We're really impressed. So within this, what we've done is we've put together all of our templates and tools that we actually use in our own systems. So mood board, weather tracking, styling resources, calculation formulas, just to make it easy and simple and everything done for you so that you can just go in and do the fun part. So if I want to break it down, I've got Canva mood template, a soil improvement template, biointensive food growing template, busy household maintenance template, and formulas to help you cost up and organize your job. Done for you. And the other really, really exciting thing that we've pulled out is we've got I'm going to call it a hub, and I don't want to just call it a community because it is a resource for information. So it is a community and a hub where you can post questions and get answers directly from us, no matter what stage of the process you're at. And you'll have access to this for 12 months for free. I'll give you an example of how someone's currently using this. We've got someone that's gone through the entire design process and is now implementing their garden beds. And he had a specific question about how to separate the garden bed and the fence line. So what we've done is we've created a resource on this and we've sent it through so that everyone can see it. And we are building all of these specific site information resources. So what will you achieve with this program? So you'll have a completed landscape design using our unique design method so you can commit on your dreams once and for all. You'll have support on your implementation and organization process. You'll have a landscape that will thrive in its natural beauty. You'll have confidence that you can maintain the space, added value to your home, so the landscape can actually add 10 to 20% of value to the current value of your home. And you'll save hours and times of stress per month. So, wouldn't be any fun without bonuses, would it? So, the first bonus that I'm so excited to share with you is that we've created a ChatGPT plant sheet that will allow you to select plants at the click of a button specific to your climate, your needs, your wants, desires. So, that's one prompt that you fill in and you add in the information that you've collected throughout the course, and you'll get a list of plants that are perfect for you. So you'll never make another plant mistake again. Bonus 2. So you'll actually have a personal review from us at the end. So you don't feel like you're going in blind. We'll review your design and send back notes and personalize ideas based on what you want. So how much is it? We know that a design costs between $3,000 and $5,000 for a suburban backyard. We know that the average landscape costs between $25,000 and $50,000 for like a 50 square meter space. So that's not to mention the time and stress that you'll save throughout this process. So it is just one payment of $7.99. Obviously, there's a lot in there at the moment for this, but we want to make sure that as many people as possible have access to this. So this is the last time that we'll be offering it at that price. Or you can start today for $166. So the fast action bonus I've got today, and this is the last time that I will ever offer this, definitely at this price point, is a 30-minute onboarding session to take you into the program one-to-one to make sure that you're on the right track and that you're all sorted with that. So I'm actually going to jump on a call with you and make sure that you're on the right track. Join us now. Let us support you in creating the oasis of your dreams. What would happen if you didn't go ahead with it? How are you going to feel if you don't enjoy your space? How's your family going to feel? Literally 166 a month for 6 months, or a one-time payment of 7.99, and you can have your problem sorted. We can guarantee that. So what you get once you purchase, you'll have instant access to the Tarkina hub. So you can go in and you can already start to ask questions straight away. You'll have portal access, so you'll be able to download all of the modules instantly, and you'll be able to see everything straight away. You can go through at your own pace. You'll be able to download our manual. So we've got a digital copy, and we've also got a physical copy to print out. It's actually quite beautiful to hold around with you. I really enjoy the physical copy. It's a beautiful journey of the garden as well. So let us help you transform your space. If you want to enroll, you can enroll just below. Or you might have some questions. You might still be wondering, like, oh, I'm not sure. So, what if I have no skills to do my landscape or the design? So, what we do is we provide you with all of the instructions you need to design the garden. You do not need any existing classic skills to do this. The other question that you might be wondering is, can I design anything? Like, what if I want a swimming pool? So, the short answer is yes, but the important thing is to understand you're not going to be a drawing engineer for designs. So, obviously, if you incorporate a swimming pool, um, you can allocate that to a space and you can go through the process and understand the best spot to put it. But you can't just hand that design to a builder and expect that to be built. You actually need that to be engineered as a safety procedure. Things like pathways and garden beds, they don't require that. But obviously, with things like swimming pool, they do need it. So, if you've got other questions, please do email or DM us. We would love to hear from you. You can message us at Tarkina on Instagram or info@tarkina.com.au. And you can also join us straight away below. Obviously, that fast action bonus is going to expire if you choose not to sign up today, because we've only got a limited count on that one. So what you're going to get is your 10 modules. You'll get the community access for 1 year. You've got the early bird pricing there, fast action bonus, $200 off the plant cheat sheet so that you'll never make another mistake again. And we're going to personally review and design your notes. We're going to support you on this journey and make sure that we create more and more sustainable, joyful gardens that help people improve their lives. So I can't wait for you to create the garden that you love. Enjoy.